Hey everyone, this is Jerm, and this is College Pro Tips, a series where I help those of you in college or thinking about going to college soon, sometime in the future, whatever, you know the drill. And actually, today, what I want to talk about is not specific to college, it's just kind of life in general, but it's something that you're going to go through in college, and that's when things don't go well. Now, obviously, people run into issues every day, but sometimes it'll feel like enough things have gone wrong in one time period, like one weekend, one week, something like that. It's going to feel like everything is going wrong. And I'm here to tell you that that is going to happen to you a lot, and it's okay. It doesn't mean that, you're done, you're through, anything like that. It's just a part of life. Bad things happen, and occasionally some of those bad things happen to all happen kind of in a row. Just as an example, this past weekend for me was not a very good weekend. I was at an event and I came home and it was starting to rain, and as many of you know, I live in a camper. So when there are storms, we always bring in the canopy on the camper, because if the canopy is out and a lot of wind hits it, it'll buffet it around, it'll be really loud, stuff like that. So my wife was out of town for the weekend, and I just didn't think about it, so I went to sleep, and then I woke up around 2 in the morning to what sounded like a tree landing on the roof of our camper. And I pretty quickly determined it wasn't a tree, because a tree would probably crush through the roof. But there was a really loud banging noise, and it kept banging over and over and over. I mean, it was incredibly loud. So I hopped up and ran to the door, and I could only open the door a couple inches. And as it turns out, the canopy had detached on one side, and in the middle of this torrential downpour, like the type of rain so thick that you can't even see 50 feet away, unless it's really bright outside, that type of rain. So in the middle of all that rain and a ton of wind, as it turns out, this canopy was swinging around. One side of it was free, and the big metal cross piece that goes across the front of it to hold it in place was slamming into the side of the camper over and over. And that could very easily be totally destroyed. So I really quickly hopped out. I slipped on shoes and a hoodie, hopped out, and then tried to get the canopy to go back in, and I couldn't get it to go back in. It wouldn't budge. It made out of aluminum on the frame, and the aluminum was kind of twisted to the side, and I couldn't get it to straighten back up. On top of that, it was 2 in the morning. I'd just woken up, and it was pouring rain. So, it wasn't a very... I wasn't really thinking totally clearly yet. So after a couple minutes, I was able to get enough of the canopy wedged back into the right position that I was able to get the switch flipped and get the canopy mostly rolled up. But I actually was like in the middle of this downpour with a exercise weight banging on this switch, trying to force it to trip so the spring-loaded canopy would start reeling itself back in. I was able to get it reeled in. I just left the rest of the wreckage, and I thought, okay, I'll go to sleep, figure this out in the morning. So I went inside, I hung up my hoodie and my, what I was wearing at the time, changed, got into bed. Woke up the next morning, and my plan was to work on my car all day long. My car was due for a timing belt change, so I pulled it into the garage, started ripping parts out of it, and that took about 9 hours. It was my first timing belt I've ever changed, and I did have somebody helping me, and they knew what they were doing, but I'd still never done it, so it took quite a while. And I finally got the timing belt all finished. Everything was good around 8:30 in the evening. So at that point, I was like, all right, it's kind of starting to get cold. I've been working all day. This is going to be great. I'm going to go inside. I'm going to take a hot shower. Maybe I'm going to sit down and watch a movie or something, just kind of kick back. So I go to do that. I go inside. I go over to turn my computer on because I hadn't checked my email or anything all day. So I just wanted to see if there was anything important I needed to look at. Turn it on. Turned around, started walking back to the bathroom, and then I heard a loud popping noise. And I turned around and looked towards the computer, and right under, to the side of the computer, actually, it's kind of hard to describe without seeing it, but to the side of it, under this panel, there were sparks shooting out from the panel and smoke pouring out, and there was the unmistakable smell of an electrical fire. And I ran back. Actually, I poked my head out the door. I yelled for my father-in-law, who was nearby. He came running. I ran back in. And what ended up being the case was we kind of added a junction box when we moved into this camper to split off external power so that my computer could be powered separately from everything else in the camper. That way, if the circuit trips in the camper, my computer doesn't lose power, because during the summer, the circuit tends to trip a lot. Well, turns out, from tripping over and over and over, the box we'd added in, some of the wires had melted through their twist connectors and were arcing against this little metal box. It burned a hole through a metal box and then started shooting sparks and smoke everywhere and caught part of my home on fire. So I was able to get that put out, but then it was too late to rewire the box, so I just decided to go to sleep. Well, even though it was April, it was starting to get cold. And I do have a battery in the camper that can run lights because I had no power. But it turns out the battery's getting kind of old and it couldn't keep the thermostat going all night long. I have a thermostat and gas heat, so I could keep heat on all night as long as I had enough power to keep the thermostat going. And power started, everything was great, and it ran out about 3 in the morning. So I'm by myself with no power. My wife's not there. It's getting pretty cold. It's just like I'm having a really bad weekend. And then at 5 in the morning, I hear lots of loud barking. Sounds like dogs fighting. There's this hunting dog that came wandering into our yard, and we have 2 dogs, and they're on runners, so they can't get to each other because they're very nice dogs, but they tend to fight with each other a lot. So we keep them separated. And they were both trying to go at this dog because he was an intruder in their yard. And this stupid hunting dog would not go away. And I was pretty close to shooting it, but we ended up letting it go. I was able to throw a brush at it and scare it off. Yelling at it didn't do anything, but throwing something light, don't think I hurt dogs, but something light hitting it with it, it yelped and gave us a mean look and ran off, and that was everything okay. And then by Sunday afternoon, I was able to get the box rewired and everything like that. But that was just a long, nasty weekend. Like, none of it was fun. I was pretty miserable the entire weekend. And then I realized, well, let me back up. I say I was miserable. I wasn't actually miserable. When each thing happened, I was like, oh, come on, what next? But I was okay. Everything was all right. Sunday, I was still in a relatively good mood. We got everything fixed. It wasn't a big deal. And that's my point. When I was in college, if I'd had all that happen, I would have been like, oh, it would have been terrible. That would have been more than I knew how to handle because I wasn't really used to being an adult. College is kind of about learning to be an adult, and I wasn't there yet. And I would have been able to handle it. But just 3 years later, it ended up not being that big of a deal when everything was said and done. So if you're having a really tough time right now, I know it's getting really close to graduation for a lot of people. So if you're having a tough time, keep calm and carry on. I know that's a real cliche design that's going around right now, real cliche phrase, but in this case, it's really true. Everything is going to be okay. It may not be exactly what you thought it was going to be. Your plans may not work out like you wanted them to. You may have really bad stuff happen to you. But everything will eventually be okay. Just be smart, be responsible, be as mature as you can, and everything will be all right. So thank you guys for listening. If you have any questions you want me to talk about, any topics, anything like that, send them in. Otherwise, have a great day.